record. All right. And I'm going to join you at 8 o'clock, but let me make you host right now.
Hey, Kelly.
Good evening. How are you two?
You're well, thank you.
Great,
Good.
great.
Good.
Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, you should have the security button visible now, Ishma. It's
I
this
do.
bottom left. And so if you want to turn off chat or anything like that, it's there for you.
I mean, this meeting usually gathers about 8 people, so and everyone's pretty well behaved. But I appreciate the alert. Thank you.
Okay, so it's recording and live streaming. All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Fire. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Lishma. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you as well.
Hi, how are you?
Looks
Hi,
like you
Fire.
just had a party behind you or something, or are you just always that festive?
It was Princess' birthday about 2 weeks ago. I'm just now, they were asking. She's like, "No, you're telling everybody again." It was her birthday about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still taking down in the process of the other decorations. Is what we had remaining left over.
I had the pleasure of meeting Fire about 2 weeks ago at the PS33 gala. That was great. Nice chat.
Oh, absolutely. It was good to meet you in person.
Likewise.
And I'm looking forward to meet you as well, Mr. Kelly McGuire.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. I was over at 33 earlier this week, but I'll have to make a trip back sometime soon. You're on the PTA, right? You're on PTA there?
Yes, I am. I'm the co-vice president on the board.
Great.
Absolutely.
I'll have to ask Cindy for a schedule.
Sounds good. I'm definitely looking forward to meet you in person as well, Ms. Ushma.
Indeed. Maybe we will have that opportunity. Okay, man, even tuning in from the batting cages, that's dedication.
Hi, Fire. Hi, Ushma.
Hello.
Soccer.
Good to see you.
Oh, you're
Good
not
to
trying
see
to
you.
raise your average? Raise your batting no, soccer.
No, we're actually cheering on our soccer kids separately. Push followed me here, not vice versa.
Right on.
Not true. I've been here since the girls were 2.
Well, not for a couple years.
All right. Well, appreciate that you are here. And hi, Iris. Nice to see you as well. This tends to be the core group of people who are interested. There's a couple more who might trickle in. I also get that we tend to schedule these right around dinner time, but let's get going. And especially because we are live streaming, and I have a couple things that might take a little bit of time to talk through. So I wanted to start with a couple of things that we're going to go over. I'm going to ask Iris to give us a bit of the lay of the land, which I'm imagining based on my last conversation with her is going to be pretty brief about D2. And then I want to get everybody's input about the allocation of all of the items that we ordered with the CECD2 money, and I have some stuff to show you. And then at the end, we'll go over any new business and anything, ideas that people have about how we can best support both students in temporary housing, as well as we've recast ourselves to also be here to support those in economic need across D2. So with that, Iris, why don't you take it away and give us a bit of an update?
All right. As you know, the 14 hotels that we had in District 2 all closed. They were turned into single women or single men shelters. At presently, we have 1,200 STH children attending schools in District 2. 310 are in shelter, 776 are doubled up, and 113 are what we call other, I think those are secretary's mistakes. Now, these are children that don't necessarily live in District 2, but didn't want to leave their school. They transferred 2,000 children out of District 2 to the Bronx, to Brooklyn, and many of them stayed in their schools. So with that being said, we have one shelter open, which is Children's Rescue Fund. And I have heard rumors that there will be another shelter opening. And I'm saying I heard rumors. Okay, that will be a feeder for, I think, if it's true, it'll be 111 in District 2 and 51. And then, you know, Chelsea Knoll, not Chelsea Knowles.
City Knoll, yeah.
Thank you. And then high school, they go where they want. We'll see if this happens. I'm pretty assured it will. So that's what's happening with STH.
So is that the shelter that was in the kind of Times Square area that you were mentioning the last time?
I'm not in a position to speak to that. I'm not in a position to, I just have to say, I heard a rumor. Please accept that. I can't give you location or anything at this juncture. I'm sorry.
Is it going to be a family shelter? Sorry.
Family shelter, family shelter.
Robin?
That was the one you mentioned. You can't give information on, or the ones that you've heard.
I don't have, okay. DHS plays it very close to the vest. They don't let us know until they start. They have to meet with the community. They have to get approval. They then move families in. In hearing about things, and I know where other shelters are opening, and there aren't that many shelters there's one shelter in District 2. It would make sense to put another shelter in because you don't want to flood a neighborhood with shelters.
Yes.
So
The one that you're talking about, the one that is there though, do you know where that is, or that's?
oh yeah, the shelter that I know is on 4 East 28th Street off of Lexington. And
Okay.
that's called Children's Rescue Fund. And that has about 110 children.
Okay.
And they're
Yeah,
renovating, so it's only going to get bigger. And the feeder school is 116.
Which is
30,
33rd, maybe?
31st, 33rd.
31st, yeah. And then Baruch. Those are the
Yes.
Okay.
children's schools that
33rd
we-
between 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And,
Jen.
got it.
We work with that shelter director fairly frequently. She's super friendly and very easy to work with.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear it. One thing that I'd ask Iris, what can we do to try and advocate for the new shelter to be D2 students who were moved out of D2 so that we can help alleviate their commuting issues?
Okay.
Is there anything we can do?
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think that we would have to talk to Heroes at DHS to see if that were possible. I didn't even think of that, Usma. So I think I will get on that immediately. I should also tell you that we've gotten funding for 50 additional community coordinators to be put in shelters, which is a step up from a family assistant, and they will assist with concrete and supportive services and with attendance issues. And I have been promised to get community coordinators for District 2. So that would be nice. But I love that idea, and I'm going to start acting on that immediately.
Let us know how we can support you, because this is a group of people that likes to make noise.
Absolutely. I will email you, I promise.
Kelly, are there pain points that we can press on as well?
Sure. Can I ask a question about the community coordinator position?
Yes.
Are there people out there who are currently doing this position? And can you just talk a little bit more about
Okay.
like what their kind of day-to-day looks like?
Okay. They're fleshing it out now. It'll be somebody well-versed on the computer that can write as well. They'll be dealing with attendance issues. They'll be trying to bring the shelter into the school to have more of a relationship. They'll be doing intakes. They'll be identifying, like, the family assistants in the shelter. Some of them are incredibly talented, and some of them are limited. And we don't have the support in the shelter that we need with families. So this is a higher level of care for families. It'll be somebody more sophisticated. And they're still fleshing out the job description. Now, I don't want to say that it's a social worker on a dime, if you understand when I say that, but they're going to ensure that children go to school and that families get their needs met. That's the role of the community coordinator.
Do you think that, but these are DOE employees, right?
Correct.
And is their office in a school, or is their office in a shelter? Is their office?
Their office is in a shelter. We have community coordinators in schools right now. 51 has one, 111 has one, okay, and 33 has one. And they ensure that kids they just care, that they're supposed to just care for the STH kids, although principals get overwhelmed and sometimes want them to do other things. So these are community coordinators that are going to be in shelters. It's like being in a school, but being in a shelter. And we're hoping that it'll make things better. I think we need more than 50, because if you think over the 5 boroughs, you know, we need a lot of help, and not all shelters are covered. But the job description has not come out yet, so I can't verify everything. You have a suggestion?
I would not want them working out of any other location other than the shelter or the school.
They're only,
They're only going
to be in a shelter, and unlike family assistance that sometimes cover more, they will be covering one shelter. And those families are their schoolroom. Okay.
Thanks,
Robin,
Iris.
go for it.
A quick question. So to be clear, so 33, for instance, has one person
Correct.
in at the shelter, and that she or he is responsible for the students who go to 33.
Right. He sits in 33. And, okay. Like, one of the things all of my community coordinators did in District 2 this year was beautiful. They contracted with Hudson Yards, and Hudson Yards, you know about this?
Yeah.
Well, that was wonderful. Then are you a part of that?
Not that, but we work with Hudson Yards as
Okay, so we got a food initiative where there was some corporation in Hudson Yards that brought food to the schools that they could take home over the weekend, non-perishables, and it went over so big that I think we're going to do it another year. All the kids wrote thank you notes. They'd come up and say, oh, please, can we get food this week? It was a wonderful initiative.
awesome. So Fire is on the call and is also from 33 currently, and Ben used to be at 33. My other question, that's amazing. I'd love to help support that. Additionally, I believe it was the last call, if not the time before, you mentioned that unfortunately during COVID, a lot of the after school programs and such that had been available to students had to stop. Are they back on now, or are they still?
It's a good question. There are after school programs that are running. We have been given a budget for programming. We've gotten a lot of funds, because of the pandemic. And there's going to be an increase in programming next year for middle school and high school. That's part of the plan as well. And it'll be in person.
Great.
Okay.
And does that happen at the shelters or at the school?
Because of the nature in District 2, there isn't a lot of room to have a program in the shelter. There's a small after-school program at Children's Rescue Fund, but it's really for little kids.
Okay.
Depending on this other shelter, if there's room, putting an after-school program in the shelter would be a wonderful initiative, and there's money for that. But first we have to have the shelter, and then we have to see who goes to the shelter. I mean, I'm thinking ahead of myself.
Who is
I am telling you that I heard a rumor that there is a shelter, so I'd rather not entertain the notion of an after-school program there until the shelter is open, the doors are open, and the family's in.
No, I mean, who is the person at 33? I thought.
Zadie.
Oh, Sadie
Collins.
I know Sadie. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I can anticipate one of the questions also that Robin was getting at was that we spent so much time in one of the last meetings also talking about transportation issues. So even if these after school programs are there and engaged, can all of the students who are now commuting actually participate in any of them? So are we spending all this money to try and have all this aftercare and then the students can't actually participate? So
Okay.
can you talk a little bit more about where our
Yes.
transportation snafus are at the moment?
The busing is greatly improved. Children are getting busing. If you attend an after-school program, you can't take the bus home. So your mother has to come pick you up. If you attend an after-school program, you'll get busing in the morning, and we'll give mom an unlimited weekly or monthly Metro card to come and pick up your child. That's where we are.
Not great for working parents. So that's another place where we can try and figure out if there's any kind of advocacy that we can think about.
It's really hard because you can't find a bus company that wants to, pick up kids at 6 o'clock at night and bring them home. You can certainly try and advocate, but I have not been able to make that happen.
Yeah. I think it was also that you were helping to educate us about the private transportation that people were eligible to get, and yet it was problematic. But
Yes.
Lupe, please go ahead.
So I actually was going to be contacting you, Iris, about possibly including you in a meeting that we have secured with Nice Bus, which is the non-for-profit school busing that has also rolled out the new VO. So like the quality of the busing has been amazing. We had a long meeting. We've had several meetings, but the last meeting we discussed at great lengths this problem with students in temporary housing as well as students with disability unable to participate in many after-school activities if needing to rely on school bus for transportation.
Oh my God, that would be wonderful.
So I hope I will send you the details. They've been really, really, really receptive, and we discuss staff shortages obviously have been an issue. However, we've noticed that it's not as much of an issue with the Nice Bus company, being that they're not for profit and they're giving their employees just a little bit better pay packaging. So there's an incentive. We are encouraging this administration and OPT to kind of look and model after, use the Nice Bus model for OPT. And we're hopefully going to be pushing this along further. So please, I will reach out to you with parents improving student transportation. And we've been longtime advocates in this issue, and we're finally getting some leeway. So we're really excited about this, and we definitely wanted to include you, Iris.
Wonderful.
In this initiative.
And I will bring someone from Central if you'd like.
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right, thanks for that. Does anybody else have questions for Iris while we have her here? Yeah, Lupe, can you elaborate on Stacy's question? Is it Nice Bus or NYS Bus, or what is it?
Right, I believe it's NYCE Bus, but we say Nice Bus, but I can get the exact acronym for you in the email. I also had a question for Iris regarding the advocacy for fair student funding formula that we've also been pushing with BCC and press regarding creating formulated weights for students in temporary housing. The chancellor was committed as of yesterday at the PEP meeting that they will be starting as early as next week, a working group to start tackling that. And your thoughts on if there's somebody within that organization that would be interested in being a part of it to try, and it's not something that's going to take, it's not an easy task. It's going to be a long process, obviously. But we wanted to make sure, I mean, that was definitely an emphasis in creating some sort of way for the students in temporary housing that will travel with them, especially when they're displaced, whether shelters are closing down and they're having to go to another district or another school.
It's interesting you say that, because I have been beset with lots of EBT cards, and I don't know how they ended up on my desk, but they did, of families that were living in hotels that they didn't have a forwarding address. So I'd have to go on the DHS website, locate what the families are, contact the regional manager for that district to make sure that that person got the EBT card. So yes, I would be interested.
Great. So I will loop you in on that as well. Thank you, Iris.
Iris, can I
Iris,
ask a
go ahead.
question?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Fire. You raised your hand.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I was wondering, with the summer on the rise, are there any type of summer programs that would be offered for children and for the students in temporary housing? Because I know that it was limited for people, for students to apply for summer rising, for example. Is there any resources that they could take advantage of?
Okay. So Summer Rising was open to every family. We did a big PR campaign. The family assistants in shelters reached out to families to get them registered. There was a lot of pushback. I can only speak to my cohort and my area. There was pushback from families who did not want to do Summer Rising this year. When asked about it, I have been told I don't want to be in school anymore. And you talk about camp being in the afternoon and school being in the morning. Then the schools filled up. And once they filled up, they closed. And we were told that we would get priority because we were STH. So I think it's completely closed now. I know that when summer comes, and I'll be working over the summer, that a parent will come to me and say, hey, I'd like to do this now, and I'll find them a program, and I'll have to do it parent by parent. There is the Fresh Air Fund. There is also Homes for the Homeless and Coalition for the Homeless. Both have sleepaway camps in Bear Mountain. And we have to work very hard with our families because parents get upset over sending the kids to sleepaway camp. But they can go for a week and it's a wonderful experience. And if they have more room, they can go for another week. Those are camps that they can utilize this summer. And in the old days, I used to do summer camp. I'd send every kid I had to the Y and they would sign up, but it didn't happen this year because of the pandemic. That's what I can tell you about summer.
I completely, thank you so much for your clarity on that. And also I would like to know that, does the DOE liaison, the coordinators that you was mentioning earlier, do they have the information for families that may be interested?
Absolutely. There's been such a big push. And although the family assistants can speak to the families about going away to sleepaway camp, those agencies come into the shelter, meet with the case managers, and meet with all the families to try to get kids to sign up for camp. So there has been a very big push to do something fun for summer.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, Kelly?
Thanks, Sushma. Iris, you can, punt this question to another meeting or a whole meeting dedicated to itself, but it's a little bit of like internal DOE kind of thinking around staffing. And I'm curious about the way in which the community coordinators that do currently exist partner with teachers who work as attendance teachers, because we know attendance is kind of like the number one thing that that schools are concerned about, right? Like getting kids to school every single day, supporting families. And I guess I'm curious about like how it is that if there's a way that collaboration is formally done, or if there's a person or an office that formally coordinates that, and also, how that might be, that person might like communicate with schools directly, because
That person meaning the
we have
shelter person, or that person meaning the attendance person?
I guess I'm curious. Well, I mean, I think that the people for schools that have small numbers of kids who are living in temporary housing, the attendance teacher is really the face of all kinds of any kind of issue in regards to attendance affecting students. And so, but I wonder, like behind the scenes, like what is the collaboration that an attendance teacher might do with a community coordinator?
I would love to have a meeting with you about that privately. That would be great. I have a lot to say.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Iris, we would welcome you to stay for the rest of this, and especially I imagine that there might be other questions that end up coming up. But unless anybody has any more direct questions for Iris, I figured we could move on to the next thing on our agenda. Yes? Okay. We were lucky enough to secure a fair bit of the CECD2 budget to spend on items to buy for our D2 students in temporary housing / students with economic need. And those items have all been purchased. There were backpacks that are stuffed with school supplies. They skew very young. It's a lot of paper and pencils and coloring pencils and scissors and things like that, but with a very nice high quality backpack. So we got 8 boxes that have 24 backpacks each in them. And then we also bought 33 graphing calculators so that we could help middle school aged kids. And we ordered the calculators, at least that my 8th grader is using and that my 10th grader was using and is still using in Algebra 2 now in high school. And so now our question is, how do we allocate these 192 backpacks and 33 graphing calculators? I had a pilot conversation about this with Kelly and Jennifer to do a first pass. And one of the things that we thought we could start with were the district data on all of the schools in D2, taking out the charter schools, I will admit that, and concentrating them on the public schools that we have that are in D2, and especially those that are under CECD2, which means that Kelly is the superintendent for those schools. And we have data from 2020 to 2021 is the most recent version of that data that I had access to, and I will share my screen in a moment. But what we're able to do is look at the middle schools towards trying to look at how we can allocate these 33 graphing calculators, and our elementary schools, or sorry, I should say any school, whether it be pre-K through 8 or just 6 through 8 was what I looked at, and then all of our elementary schools. And what we had as a readout was both percent of their community that were students in temporary housing, but there's also a rubric for percent of students that are economically disadvantaged. And I'm imagining that that's probably the free and reduced lunch community that reports. So we have all this data, we have this fixed number of items that we can give out, and we cannot give just one to every school. But we're trying to figure out what is the most equitable thing. And in a conversation earlier with Jennifer Greenblatt, I thought that we would, together as a community and this committee, try and make a decision here, because there's 2 ways we can allocate these. We can look at the schools that probably have the most need, but how do you define that? We can either look at the schools that have the highest percentage of students in economic need, or we can look at the number of students that are in economic need. Because you take a school, just for instance, like Wagner, and because it is a giant school, even though it has a smaller percentage that are in economic need, the sheer number of students is giant. So there's 2 different ways of thinking about this, and it yields a set of schools that is overlapping, but not entirely overlapping. So that's the first kind of philosophical discussion that I thought we as a group could have. And as well, I'm happy to share my screen and show you that data. Does anyone have any first thoughts, or would you like to see the schools and the data?
Just one quick clarification, the backpacks and supplies will go to elementary schools.
Correct. And then the graphing calculators will go to any school that has 6th through 8th graders, because there are a few schools that go pre-K through 8, and then all of the schools that are 6 through 8 were who I kept in the list from that data that we got. We do not have enough to cover everyone in need, unfortunately. My metric on here is that even if we restrict to like the backpacks, let's just talk about the backpacks. I've done it 2 different ways, the one with the highest percentage of students in need or the highest number of students in that school. And with the highest percentage of schools in need, that's 2,069 kids, or the highest number of students in economic needs is 2,700 when you look at just sending things to 6 schools. So we don't even have enough stuff for everyone that we need, or we would love to be able to advantage with these kind of gifts. The other thing that I'd say is what we did last year, we're going to do again this year, which is we are going to give these to the schools, to the community coordinator if they have one, or to the principal, and allow them to make that allocation to the students that they have. We do not want to be in the position of trying to legislate that, and we know that the schools have a much better idea of who's in their midst and maybe who needs these items. Yeah. All right.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Okay. So I do Operation Backpack. Operation Backpack is run from Volunteers of America. And I just ordered $50,000 worth of backpacks, and they do their public relations and they try to drum up a lot of supplies. My gut tells me this year, because it's being run by a new staff, I've worked with the same people for years, they're both gone, that it's not going to be for every shelter in New York. They think they're going to get everything for everybody. I don't. Here's an idea. Why don't you, can you hold on to those backpacks over the summer, wait for the new shelter to open, if indeed it does, because we give out these backpacks in August and then there are no more. Unless it's something you want to do now in June so that they can have it for the summer and they can have it for summer rising. I mean, that's just an option. But kids will be getting backpacks at the end of August. But depending on if indeed this shelter opens, they may not. If they open later than Operation Backpack.
So I mean, that's one of the different strategies here, is that we're giving to schools as opposed to giving to shelters. And I think I remember having this discussion with you. I think the backpacks from Operation Backpack also have things like socks and hygiene supplies, and we considered that and instead ended up going, we had a small number of things that we could choose from through the shop DOE vendor, and ended up going for one that had more school supplies in it. Does anyone have any early thoughts? Otherwise, I'm happy to share my screen and show you some of these numbers as well, so that you could get a sense of what the allocations could look like. All right, here we go. So starting with backpacks, option 1 is the highest percentage of students in economic need. And I hope you can see this. I'm sorry to anybody who's on their phone. But as you can see, we've got the building number, the school name, what grade span they have, their total enrollment. And again, this is for 2020 to 2021. And then the percent of economically disadvantaged, the percent of students in temporary housing. And again, these numbers are out of date. I know Iris would probably have more up-to-date ones, but then, you know, using this metric, it's calculating the number of students in economic need. So I just looked at this cutoff of more than 50%. And so this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools. If we just look at the number of students that are in economic need at these 7 schools, it's around 2,000. So if you figure out what is the percent in that school out of the 2,069, it comes up with an allocation of boxes this way. But if we decided to take the backpacks out of the boxes and instead allocate them differently, we end up with a allocation of backpacks this way. And then that way, everybody gets some. I mean, obviously, this is entirely open for discussion. Now, let me show you the different metric, which is option 2, the schools with the highest number of students in economic need. And there, I just went over 250. And so in that regard, here's what the box allocation would be or the backpack-based allocation would be. And so I'm going to hide a number of these columns so that we can look at everything together. All right, so let's see. So again, at the top is option 1, where we're looking at the highest percentage of students in economic need. And then at the bottom is the highest number of students in economic need. And what you see in purple are the overlapping schools in both groups. So you've got PS 51, PS 111, 42, 47, 126, 1, and 2. Whereas if we go based on the number of schools, this ends up favoring some of the larger schools in our district in 11, 51, 33, 124, 42, 132, and 126. I'll just keep showing you this stuff. This has to do with the calculators then. So if we look at the percentage again at the top, and this is again anything that's pre-K through 8 or 6 to 8, and trying to figure out, there's 33. And so looking at this middle school population, if we do it based on those that have the highest percentage, again, I just chose 50% as the cutoff versus the highest number of students in economic need. And this was just using 175 as the cutoff. And again, we either are at 289 LMC, the sign language school, 126, which is MAT, City Knoll, or Sun Yat-sen, versus if we go by number, it's LMC, Sun Yat-sen, 75 Morton, Wagner, Baruch, and MAT. So I feel very reluctant to make this decision on my own. So I would very much welcome anybody's opinions and feedback on how we can best do this to be fair. And I'm happy to keep showing the data one way or the other.
My preference is to use the number of students as opposed to the percentage. The one question I do have is when you look at schools with the highest number, when you look at a K-8 like 126, are those students mostly in middle school or are they in elementary school? My guess is that they're probably in elementary school.
That is unclear to me and not a level of granularity that I had access to within this data set. So, I mean, if we look over here, it's the same in terms of this was looking at the pre-K through 8th grade. Largely the elementary school population for the backpacks.
Usma, if you'd like, I can tell you how many STH kids are in any of those schools, if you want me to. All right, it's going to take me time, but
Right.
I will get that for you now.
I think, Iris, based on your last feedback in a conversation and consultation earlier, we decided to use the metric of, especially since we are giving them to the schools and allowing the schools to determine who they could allocate to, because just because somebody isn't in a shelter doesn't mean that they aren't, needing or deserving of these kinds of things, and allowing the schools to do that. We ended up using the percent economically disadvantaged column instead of STH. And and as well figuring that the STH population would have changed from the 2020 school year to where we are right now. I think it's valuable information for us to have. I just don't know how public we want to make that.
Correct.
Right. This is a public meeting, by the way. This is all discoverable information, so I did not feel bad about putting this out there on our YouTube channel. But thank you for smiling at that.
I also think if we're using the number based on knowing these schools, even the data out of it, that if we could break up the boxes and include 111, I think it's really important. And I think the difference between, in terms of the numbers between the 236 and 177 for PS1 is a big difference. The difference between the 258 and the 236 is not that big. And if we could include them, I think that would be beneficial to all those kids.
PS1 has 19, PS2 has 30. And I agree with you about 111.
Okay. So this is including that now. So let's see. This ends up being 8 boxes, or this is how the distribution would be if we took out the backpacks. So Kelly, one of the things we wanted to ask you about was A, how much space this is taking up in your office currently, and then from a logistical, here, I'll stop sharing for the moment, but I'm happy to put it back up. What the logistics could be around the distribution. Last year, it was Shino and I who rented a car and drove things to different schools, which I am happy to do. And I am sure amongst this group of people, I'll be able to find one other person that would be willing to help me to go and take this stuff to different schools. It might take a little bit of time, but from a logistical perspective, in terms of distribution, do you have any ideas? Do you have any thoughts that might favor box versus backpacks, or how that could work?
First of all, it's not taking up very much space at all. We've got a very good spot for it. So it can live there as long as it needs to. I think that, you know, we're talking about 8 boxes, right? And so I think between times when, you know, one of our staff members is visiting a school, or calling a school and asking them to send somebody up to bring it back, I don't think that that's completely unreasonable.
I think that's okay with the calculators. With the backpacks, it's more difficult. And I said to Ushma earlier, I'd be happy to go with her and arrange for each school a certain time. So all they have to do is come out to the car and get what is theirs.
All right.
I'm happy to do that.
I've got 2 things. One, I have a car and with a hatchback, and I have no problem helping. 2, here's an idea. If those backpacks are sitting in Kelly's office, it would be wonderful to donate some of those backpacks to enrollment with the express purpose that they go out to District 2 students when they enroll in a school. They're coming in May, they're coming in June. They don't know anybody. It's nice to give a gift. It makes a kid feel really good. If we could take some of those, I'm talking about for STH, because they come in through enrollment all year long. So
Iris, do you have a lot of kids coming in now that you know about?
they come in trickle. I know come August, they're going to come in droves. But I know that when I was doing backpack, I would take a dozen backpacks and bring them up to enrollment and house them there. And when the kid came in during the course of the year, we would give the kid a backpack, and it made them so happy. If you want to take a portion of those. If not, you want to give them to schools, great. You want to give them to shelters, I'm in, and I have no problem helping.
Thank you,
I
Fire.
personally love that. I mean, you know, how difficult is it to come into a new district, a new system, a new office where it's uncomfortable, and to somehow make that a little bit better? Sounds great.
Yes.
Well, that sounds like an excellent idea. Maybe we can allocate one of the boxes, because that's 24 backpacks,
That's plenty.
could be used for incoming D2 STH via the Office of Enrollment. All right, done. Our first decision.
Good.
We've broken the ice. All right.
Ushma, depending on when you go, I would love to help you with that as well, as long as I'm available.
Thank you, Lupe. Much appreciated. Takes all of us. And Fire, thank you for your offer to help as well. We will gladly take you up on it.
Sounds good.
Now, okay, so now we have 7 boxes that we can distribute to other schools. Let's go back and look at this again. So if we are now looking at 7 boxes, some of these schools are, how is this not working? Because this is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, my calculations did not work here. Let me. Okay, so this looks a little clearer than, and so this is clearly 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's a matter, we can also do it that way. We can give out 5 full boxes and then break these up to into halvesies for these other schools. I have learned that it is best not to disagree with Jennifer Greenblatt. So if anybody else has a disagreement with going with option 2, please voice it now around going with the highest number of students as opposed to percentage.
I'm open, but I thought that made the most sense.
No, I'm saying that I agree with you also.
Yeah, I agree with the numbers. Now, I am curious that if you picked 5 schools that got 5 boxes and the remainder, could we break those up to give to the other schools? Would it be enough? I'm asking, like, I don't know how many is per box. So is that feasible?
Yeah, let's see. So this is 5. So then that leaves equals to 24. So 48. So instead,
You know, Uzma, these backpacks don't need to be, if you give them out to schools, they don't need to be given out immediately to the children. The schools can house them for the new students that come in.
Yep. So in the end, let's see. So we've got, how did that? not
Iris,
work?
let me ask you a question. Do you think for enrollment, if you're gonna get more in August, that 12 is enough to hold it over until then?
She said 24.
No, but I'm saying, would 12 be enough? And then we could take the 12 and other 12 out of that and
That's
give them
right.
to the schools.
So this is
Yes,
where we would end up, is that like 111 would get 12, 11 would get 12, 51 would get 12, 33 would get 12. So we'd break up the boxes into 2, and then we'd give full boxes to these 5 schools.
I think that would be fine because elementary school children enroll directly at the school and don't go to enrollment. It'll be the middle school children that will go to enrollment for admission. So yeah, I think 12 is fine, Jen.
But and these backpacks though are for elementary.
Yes.
You have notebooks in there?
Yep.
You have pens and pencils?
Yep.
Then that's fine. And it's a nice backpack.
Correct.
I'm very fussy about the backpacks.
Okay, then you have 12 more to play with, Ushma.
What do you mean? Because there's
We're only
5
giving
We want it
12
if
to
we give to
enrollment. You
everyone.
have half that box.
Okay.
that you could split
Um,
up among the 4 schools.
All right, so then,
3 more.
let's see.
So they'd all go to 15, right? Yep.
I think that sounds like an absolutely terrific way for us to advantage the most people. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, looks good.
All right.
Great.
So
Thank
we
you.
are gonna do that. And then on the calculators, are we satisfied with this kind of a calculator allocation down here in terms of going again based on the number of students in economic need instead of percentage?
Again, just because of what Iris said about most of the students coming in through enrollment, can we spare 12 calculators to go in those backpacks, knowing that they're more likely going to be middle school students?
So
Is that possible or no?
Well, that's for high school. Those
Yeah, the-
calculators.
Oh, for
are
high
Yeah.
school. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Never mind. Scratch
the
what I said.
backpack-
Never
No,
mind.
it's appreciated and it's a nice 2-for-1 hit. It's just the backpack is very much geared towards an elementary school student, whereas these, like my son goes to Baruch, and there's plenty of students who would need these kind of calculators that couldn't afford them. They were $92, I
Yeah.
think, which is why we only were able to buy 33 with the thought that we had around where we wanted to allocate the money in our budget. We thought we had found this provider that was able to provide them for $80, but they sold out of that calculator. So we had to go with a different vendor from within Shop DOE that was the same as what it costs at Staples. So, anybody?
Iris, if you look at students in temporary housing at 126, can you look at that number by middle school only?
No, I can't. I can find out, but I can't right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid, not that I don't want to give them to them, but I'm afraid 13 is very high and it's probably more, the number is coming from elementary as opposed to middle.
Well, I mean, we can also always adjust this balance. Like we can, allocate a few more to LMC and Sun Yat-sen and decrease the number that we send to MAT.
I'm confused if the calculators are not for elementary, and I apologize if I'm not familiar with the grade span at some of these PS, but wouldn't the PS schools not apply? Or does that PS 126 go up to?
126 has MAT in it. It's a K through 8.
8. Okay, I apologize. I didn't see that on there. Okay.
These are the really sophisticated graphing calculators that have a screen at the top, so you can do factorials.
No, I'm
and
familiar.
that,
Yeah, no, I was just making sure that some of these schools may not have applied for students that needed them.
Yep. So, one of the things that we could consider doing is, these schools, City Knoll, 47 and 289 that showed up here, borrowing a little from Peter to give to Paul and everybody else.
Yeah, I would like to, if we could, if we're going to go by number, move City Knoll into,
Jen? 126 has 106 STH, and it's 18% of the student population.
okay.
You
How many
asked
did you say? How many did you say, Eris?
126. I'm
At
sorry,
126?
106.
Yeah.
106, and it's 18% of the population.
So it's gone down a little bit from 2020 to 2021, but not massively. So. Okay, so how about we do it this way, where 3 that we would have given to MAT, we would give to City Knoll instead, because that's how many they would have gotten based on this percentage up here otherwise.
We
Is that
can
a sat-
anticipate City Knoll getting more students if there is an additional shelter.
How do we like this?
I like it.
Nice round
I like
numbers.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Then going once, going twice. Any other thoughts on this? Kelly, I'd welcome your feedback.
I was actually using another tool to try to figure out how many students in temporary housing were in middle school, which I could do really quickly with 126, but I need like a minute. But I have the names of the kids, so, and their ages. So, but if I've already decided that's okay. I'm good.
No, you could do that if it'll take a minute.
Take a minute. Take a minute.
Yeah,
I'm
okay, yeah, just a
interested.
minute.
Yeah.
I think we'd all be interested, but you know, this was, I have to say, option 2 was Jennifer's suggestion to me, and it definitely changed the way that I was thinking about things. Like, I get that there are schools up here that could really use this, but these are also some of the schools that did the best when we were fundraising for supporting STH, and some schools that have shown such strong support for their community. I love the idea of some of these larger ones that have been a little bit more difficult to penetrate when it comes to getting the parent community involved in fundraising for STH.
Thirty-three middle schoolers
At which school?
at 126.
Can you tell me 104? Can you do that in a minute too?
Yeah.
I just want to see the difference between the two, just for a
Yeah.
comparison.
I'll keep track on here while you're talking.
104 has 32 STH kids.
So they're about equal.
So look at that. We came to that same conclusion with our allocations.
Can you do one more? Can you do 297?
I have 45.
Wow.
Wow.
But let's see what Iris has. Two different tools maybe that we're using to look at the data.
Oh, God, I
Race.
talking, forget about it. You said 297?
Yeah,
Yes.
75
Okay,
Martin.
all right, okay. I've got 4 pages here, I'm sorry. 297 is 45.
Oh, wow. Okay, you two match. All right, well, we might as well do the other ones too. If it's not too much trouble. Wagner,
What's the DBN?
167. O2M 167.
43. You have another one?
131.
$29.
You two are in sync. Love to see it.
Makes it, we're using this to prove that our data sources for the Department of Education are reliable and valid. We've got 2 different sources going on. So.
That's refreshing to hear, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So does this impact the way we want to think about things, by the way? I mean,
It would
because
impact it if we were only talking about students in temporary housing, but if we're also talking economic need, maybe not.
yeah. I just feel like this is that place where like these community coordinators that Iris is talking about, yes, they're going to largely be working with STH, but it's very likely, as she was saying, the principals are going to allocate a number of different things to them. They're going to have a good sense of who could really use these items. I imagine in middle schools, it'll be for the kids taking, you know, SP algebra and things like that that are in those kinds of courses that could really use these calculators. So
Does it make sense only just based off the numbers that were provided? What I noticed was that 297 and 131 were much higher. I mean, not much higher, but higher than 167 and 10 or 104 and 126, I believe. They were in the 30s, if I remember correctly.
Right. Yes,
And-
you are correct.
Okay, and so the ones that are in the 40s, do we maybe siphon from one to another or what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think you're right. It's it just balanced out at least one going
Right.
from one to the other, but it's a matter of whether or not we want to borrow from Jacob Reese to
Right.
give to Sun Yat-sen.
Okay.
How about that? There we go.
Wherever you put them, they'll go to good use.
Indeed.
Very true.
I think we can't go wrong here. So, all right. I have just saved that and I will stop share so that we can all kind of go look at each other for a little while as well. All right. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring up about EBT cards, other ideas that they might have for things that we could consider for supporting D2 students in economic need and in temporary housing?
I know our school at PS234, parents, back in December when we did the locker wish lists, pantry wish list, a lot of parents were asking about possibilities or ways that the kids could maybe get involved in some way or some form. And just thought, for me, the first thing that came to mind, aside from COVID, because during that time we were peaking beyond belief, even now, but the other thing was just right to privacy. And so I just wasn't sure, Iris, has there ever been an opportunity for elementary or middle school age kids to give back and maybe get involved? Because we definitely have a parent community that would like to, and I just, at this moment in time, I couldn't think of anything. So I thought I would ask you if something's been done in the past.
It's interesting you bring that up. Right now, and it's not in District 2, I also cover District 3. Do you know what Build-A-Bear is?
Yes, we love Build-A-Bear.
So we have these people that come into the school with the Build-A-Bear equipment, and the entire school makes Build-A-Bears and writes a note to a child. And then I and the guidance counselor deliver the Build-A-Bears to a shelter and give it out to children. And it's a very warm, loving event. It's really good. Around Christmas time, I have high schools that reach out to me and say they want to support a shelter. And that's when I think it really needs to get done. They are very happy to accept gifts. They cannot accept food. Whether a school wants to do a penny drive or, come up with something, it helps the shelter rather than another school, but you don't want to humiliate kids. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I would like to be involved with that if you have any ideas around it. I can connect.
I would
you to
love
shelters.
if District 2 can start something similar. And with, I know last year we were kind of crunched for time, Ushma, and maybe we can work on even during the summer, rolling it out as early as the beginning of the year to get as much support as we could come December.
Okay, that would be great.
I love the idea of a penny drive. It can also help some of the coin shortage. Then try and figure out if there's, I know there's a bank that's across the street from and it's a credit union from my kids' elementary school that partnered with the school on a lot of things. I don't know whether there's matching funds or donation or something like that to make it competition style. So, right. It's a great idea. Let's keep thinking of them. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been here this whole time and really appreciate it. Would you like to unmute and ask/share anything you wish?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I just want to say I actually stumbled upon the videos yesterday, and I've been watching the last year since yesterday. And what a terrific job! It was inspiring, and when I saw that you were having another meeting today, coincidentally, I was very excited to join and just see the outcome of it, especially with the buses and the busing. I'm so glad it's working out, and excited about that. Just some feedback. Like I saw in one of your other meetings that is there any parents here that could give feedback and things like that? And I spent time in the Row Hotel as well. Had trouble with busing. My daughter was picked up at 7 a.m., got to school at 10 a.m., was lost in the busing system, complained with OBT. It was horrible. So when I heard about the busing problems, I was furious. I was like, I was glad it worked out. Another thing I'm seeing is terrific jobs with the school bags. The numbers, however, as a federal employee and dealing with like assessing people's incomes a lot, I just want to, and in myself involved in poverty and the issue with others, the difference between like being economically disadvantaged and STH students. Iris, I've actually spoken to you before in the past too, if you help me out with Metro cards. Just that, yeah, there's always a need in the economically disadvantaged, but economically disadvantaged is an ambiguous term. Now, this was done based on the federal guidelines, those numbers was taken. And I happen to know what guidelines was. And what qualifies a person to be economically in need is simply they could have a job, but your expenses have to exceed your income. Like, for instance, if you want, you can make your income could be $1 million, but if you show me that your living expenses is $1,001, you qualify for food stamps legally by law. Anybody can, even a billionaire, if they can show their living expenses are $1 billion to 1. So STH, however, is an emergency. This is a critical thing. This is an epidemic. Mostly what I was looking for, and this is terrific that you're on, because this is the only place where I even saw inspiring information. Iris was right. She was like, she worked for everywhere else. Nowhere else done it like this. And this was inspiring. There are more homeless people out there. You see those bunches in the map that you were showing? Where those homeless spots are at in Bronx and things like that, people are being bunched in. There's STH students that are not even classified as STH that do qualify legally as STH, but because they don't even know they can, or sometimes they can't even profess where they live at if they're in the projects. They have to keep that on the down low, or the person helping them could get evicted. So you always have to deal with that situation. We're currently, I had to come back because of my disability to my mother's abandoned house that the bank was supposed to take over and didn't, but now is going to, and I may go back over there and receive services. My middle daughter goes to school in PS11, but the services there are terrific compared to the rest of the city. And I just want to thank you on behalf of parents who are homeless, behalf of, children, especially, and in behalf of humanity, God's sakes, humanity needs people like us, and you are just a shining example how when humans work to collaborate the way we were supposed to collaborate. This is what humans are supposed to do. So thank you for being that example, and great work. If there's anything, my name is Carlos Perez. I deal with a lot of homeless people. I'm also familiar with No Child Left Behind. My oldest daughter, those $75,000 bus. I am the only parent who won a bus for 3 months for my daughter based on No Child Left Behind. I'm a strong parent advocate, so I'm policy savvy. And if you ever need advice or parents to, just to join you up and kick some places around. You know, I'm a great at gathering people. In Bushwick, I've gathered hundreds of 18-year-olds during elections years, and with police escort them to voting offices. If they're not registered, you know, things like that. So I have fun with it, and I'm disabled currently and not doing anything. So if anybody ever needs me, I'm here. But thank
Carlos,
you so much.
thank you. You made all of our hearts sing. I mean, this is probably the most gratifying thing that I get to do on the CECD2. And I think you just encapsulated exactly why we're all motivated to do this. And it's a pleasure. And so thank you. And we will 100% take you up on your offer to join us in further initiatives that we do and giving us real feedback about what it is we're doing and where we can have the most impact. So thank you for that. And we heard you. We didn't just listen to what you said. We heard you. I think that
doing very, very important work, everyone. Please keep it up. It's just we belong where we're most needed, and you're a shining example of that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's extremely gratifying to hear. Thank you very much. All right. Jose, welcome. Nice to see your face.
Thank you. I'm sorry. We actually had our PTA meeting, and I was trying to listen into both as best I could. But Ushma, thank you for the invite. It is so wonderful that you guys are following up on this. Our school, in particularly, is interested in helping out the community. And Lupe, thank you for mentioning that. We would love to participate in any way we can. As a PTA, we can try to organize something to fundraise either this year or even plan for next year so that we can gather up something to help our community. Thank you, Iris, for what you do. This is really, really important work. And thank you, Carlos, for your words. It was a pleasure.
Well, Jose, you are now one of us. So you will get all of my emails and all of my invites to all of this. You and Carlos are most welcomed here. And Stacy, thank you for coming, as you always do. Really appreciate it. We didn't have much of a discussion about community closets so far. That is an initiative that we got started at, I think, 3 different schools, the ones that had the highest STH percentage and were most motivated, and or where we had advocates like Fire, who in my screen is right next to me, who was single-minded and focused around getting something started at their school. So that initiative is not dead, but it has not been our main focus. And then we left parent groups like one that Fire started to, pun intended, maybe not, around getting their communities to contribute to those closets. I, by and large, was trying to help people use their EBT cards to stock pantries with non-perishables, including Children's Rescue Fund. And I haven't done a whole lot of marketing on that recently. And I was just thinking that I was going to do that and could use amplification from any and all of you around the ways that people can get replacement cards and then use them to stock these pantries. At present, the only pantries we have are 51 and Children's Aid. We're the only ones who set up Amazon-based wish lists for non-perishables. And then I think there are 4 schools that set up Amazon wish lists for their community closet that included all sorts of other things as well. That is an initiative that I admit kind of fell by the wayside, but if there are champions that would love to join me in keeping that up and getting it going, we just saw the data on which schools could probably use this the most. And I admit that I haven't reached out to some of them where I don't have a personal relationship or where a liaison on the CEC hasn't come to this and so then hasn't spearheaded that project, but that's no excuse really.
We have both a closet and a pantry, but not Amazon wish lists, which I can try to get the, especially the 2 teachers who really run it, and then parents sort of like do the weekly pantry backpacks. And then I was just curious, like, about what other people's do with the closet, because it's used a lot, like it's used every day, but it's also like sort of a challenge to keep appropriately stocked, you know, like we have lots of size 3. But so I was just curious about other schools. And I know one of our teachers, Sam Pitta, joined the meeting because she I alerted her to it because we've been discussing how we need to sort of do more with our closet, because right now it's like just sort of based on like donations, and then sometimes a kid needs something and we just use our pantry funds to buy them things. But if there are other sort of systems in place that other people are using, that might be helpful.
Well, I'd love to pass it to Fire because she has more of the boots on the ground experience on what has worked at 33.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ushma. From my experience, Stacy, I am affiliated with PS33, and from my experience, what we did is that we established a closet online, and what we did is that overall is that we went to our school community and we said, hey, we have a wish list that we created for families in need, temporary students of families in need, and what we did from there, we actually was able to put it on our newsletter for our site for the school community overall. And a lot of the families were able to contribute to our wish list. But aside from that, we also work with our school counselor, which is very helpful, and also coordinators there at the school where they were able to put out different messages and like discreetly though done, we're able to do different communications to those families in need. So in other words, it really got the ball rolling. We also were in close connection with the church that wasn't far from the school. So in terms of the pantry and different resources that we needed for those families and the students in need, it actually was ongoing. Even to presently, we still have those resources coming in terms of what the needs are mostly for the kids. So I mean, it's just different, brainstorming needs of what they need presently. Like for example, let's see, there's like personal items. There's different things that the girls need now. So we make sure that the nurses, that's another thing I wanted to mention, that the nurses' closet, we constantly are bringing things in there for the girls, especially that have emergencies, so that they can continue to make sure that their needs are met. So it's really important that we have everything stocked. Just pretty much, what you can do is, start a list. And then from there, find out from your liaison in your school, what do those students need the most? And then that's how we keep the ball rolling. But definitely keep it going. Because if we don't ask, we're not going to know what they need.
Yeah.
If that helps any.
I'm also happy to share with you, I have the list for PS51, and there's a way to also make something like, if you get it, then it drops off the wish list, but there's also a way to make a perpetual need list. So, but I will agree with Fire. I think one of the things that's really critical here is that Amazon wish list, or the list that you can continue to blast out, not only to your community, but we're here to be mouthpieces. And I know that there are a couple of other groups that contact me. They found me the same way that Carlos did, just Googling like who's doing this. And so there's this group that meets on Roosevelt Island called Democrats for Freedom, and they're fantastic and they want to help. And so they can blast these things out to their membership. So they're constantly asking me for who's got these lists, who needs stuff, where can we donate? Because there's so many wonderful people that really want to help. So to the extent that it's not too onerous to go in and set up an account for your school and set up an Amazon wish list, and then we can do what we can to help blast that out to beyond your own parent community and to other D2 schools and D2 parents.
I just want to add, reach out to your parent coordinator at the school, because I know with my school at PS33, we have a close connection with her, and she's always letting us know which students need that assistance. So if you know who your parent coordinator is at your school, they'll be very grateful. They assist you in so many different ways.
We haven't had a parent coordinator for about 2 years, but we're working
which school
on
are
it.
you with?
PS347, but we do have, an already like regular weekly pantry program, and it is there are other families too, but there is a list of the families that are most in need, in both ways, in many ways. But then there's always others, who randomly need something. You want to say something, Sam?
Hi, everyone. Don't mind me here, just listening.
Hello, welcome.
I'm a first grade teacher. I run the food pantry and the closet at 347. And like Stacy said, we've just been in a constant loop of we're running out of clothes, who had an accident. So we give them those clothes, and we had 2 pairs of boys' pants and now they're gone and now we have nothing. So I think for me, the reason why I jumped, because that for us, we ask our community to donate, but our community who will, the parents and the families that will donate are most of our pre-K parents, which is why we have such a big supply of little tiny clothes and no clothes for our middle school and our elementary kids. So I'm definitely going to look into that, and then I would love somebody can give me some contact, and I will be happy to get that Amazon wish list going, and then we can get that blasted out, because that would be wonderful for us. We're kind of running out of resources. We had a lot of cash donations right before the pandemic. We had probably about, I think it was $12,000 donated, which really kept us going for a while. But that number is getting smaller and smaller, so we need a backup plan. So thank you so much for letting me listen.
I just dropped a link in the chat to where I have put in something it's very food focused, and it's focused on those pandemic EBT cards, and there's a presentation in there where people can find all the information about how do I get a new card, how do I fill it up if it wasn't filled up, and then how do I use it on Amazon, and then some wish lists where people can do that. So one of the wish lists is in there already. So hopefully that can be helpful as a first pass. And then I will do my best to put you in touch with some of our champions in the city who can help you look at what their community closets look like, or their Amazon wish list, et cetera.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Sure. Lupe.
I wanted to just amplify the fact that we were heavily pushing the Amazon wish list links that we did have. But I'm also very interested if it sounds like you guys also take donations, and that's something that our school community really rallies to be able to collect, and as well as donate funds for your wish list and purchasing brand new things. But we found in the past 2 years, due to COVID, it's been harder to find places that are willing to even take gently used clothing. So I will put my email in the chat, and I would love for you to contact me if that is something that you guys are willing to take, because PS 234, we have an abundance, and it's something that our community really takes pride in being able to give back. And so I would love to share that information. I myself have bags and bags of elementary boys' clothes, so size clothes. So I would love to, I could drop them off to you guys as soon as possible, and then rally some other families and getting some stuff together for you guys. We're here to help, and I will reach out to not just the school that my son goes to, but other schools that I liaison for as well in pitching similar assistance. And as soon as you guys get those wish lists together, please do share them with us as soon as possible, and we will blast them to as many people as possible. And that goes for the ones that are existing. So Fire, I love that. I want to stress that these Amazon wish lists are great because they're ongoing and they can continue throughout the year. And I don't know if we can maybe, send out within our CEC emailers, or even put a space on our website if we don't already have one, a way for our district to know how they can continuously contribute to some of these things. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'll reach out to you, Lupe.
Thanks, Fire.
All right, everybody. Any other new business? Otherwise, I have one last thing to talk to you all about, or I'm hoping If you have to go, please go. But if I could at least grab Lupe and Ben if they're here. Anybody? Okay. Well, enjoy your evenings. Thank you for everything you do for this community within D2. We love these families. We want to keep them. We want their kids to be happy and learn. So, all right. Then pivoting to something else, Kelly, we actually have to ask you to say goodbye.
Okay. Thanks, Ushma. Thanks,
Sure.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, Kelly.
Bye.
One thing that I could use your collective help with is on Monday, we're going to be having a district superintendent town hall to interview 2 candidates. And one of the things that we discussed last night that we wanted to test tonight is the potential to use polls. And I have an account, so I am going to start this up. So if you can get if you have access to the internet or if you have just a phone, you can use by text message. And what I'd ask you to do is do one or the other. You can go to the website on your phone. It's just as easy, pollev.com. And it's going to ask you for what the poll is. And that would be MSK polls 345. I do not need to know who you are. So you can skip if it asks for your identity. Or if you want, you send a text message to the number 22333. And the body of that text message is MSK polls 345. It'll be on each of the slides that are coming up as well, but it's easiest just to get it done now. To get into the system, you can do it either text message or you can go to the website, either one. And everybody, this is just, I'm going to reset all of these. We're going to rewrite them. So please and I just wanted to show Ben and others what these kind of polls can do. So I'm going to join you as well in this. So join MSK polls 345. Join. Okay, so what we're going to do now, is which candidate, so this is one of the questions that we could do. Which candidate do you think would serve the needs of D2 better? So just choose one. And so in real time, you can see as people are, I'm going to reset this. This is not an actual question. This is just for playing tonight. And so that others can see how this would work. You only get one vote then while you're doing this.
I just did one vote.
Yep. So then if we go to another question, it would be, and you'll see if you're doing it on the website, it'll change to which candidate answered the question on ELLs better. And so you can choose ones.
This is just a sample poll for all those people.
This is just a sample. This is just
on
to
YouTube.
test it out. Yeah.
Kelly's last name is spelled wrong.
Oh, I will make sure to change that too.
Or for tomorrow, or for Monday.
Yeah. If we decide to use this,
right?
I went to another one tonight to see what they did.
Yeah.
I went to D5 as well.
Yeah, they didn't do a poll. They asked people to put it in the chat, and the chat only went to the CEC or the panelists.
So this is just one way of doing it. And then this is this is, you need an account before you can register with MSK polls. Okay, I'll have to rechange that. But one of the things that, I had anticipated was you can do a word cloud. I'll change the settings on that so that we could ask people, what are the words or what are the characteristics that you want? And then one of the other polls was also just for open feedback, like anybody could give open feedback on there. So I just wanted to be able to show you, like, that's it really. Like, we can phrase the questions however we want, and we can ask people to choose, like by text message, you just put in an A or a B, or on your phone, you click one or the other.
It's pretty simple.
And if I
love it.
change, yeah, if I change some of the settings so that it doesn't require people to be logged in, we could do word clouds, we could do open responses and things. I can also change it to have their pictures as well as their names as well. But I was just going for quick and dirty. I set that up in 10 minutes before the meeting. So, you know, it's a way of getting some amount of feedback. And you know, if people choose to give their names, we'd have their names, but I probably wouldn't pass that on to anybody because they just
For me, it
felt
worked
bad to
until
fill
the
it out.
login part. So everything seemed to work just fine until the login. Need
All
an
right, thanks,
accounting
Jose.
point.
But this is exactly what I was thinking of when I brought it up at our meeting yesterday. Something just for the people that may not have been able to submit anything, and then to be able to just give feedback live, you know, after they've heard everything, still fresh in their minds.
Yeah. We would obviously have to work on the wordsmithing of, you know, do we want A, B answers? Like who answered the question on ELLs better, who answered the question on this better, et cetera, or who, and then an overall question at the end. Or we could just ask that one, you know, it's really entirely open here.
The only
Also, I
issue
think-
I see with it, and I think it's great, is that you don't know who's responding to the question. In a chat, you know who they are. And by not knowing, you could be having like people from other districts weighing in, which, you know, it should be District 2 community.
Well, that could happen anyways, because we aren't going to go look up the names of every single person who attends and whether or not they're a D2 parent. You know, so if somebody puts it into the chat and it's, you know, Ahmed Q Public, we don't know if that person has a kid in D2. I think what we're assuming is that if you're coming to the D2 town hall, you have a desire to participate in the session.
I know at least 10 people that were on the D5 tonight. So that would mean that, I mean, I did it and I'm sure Ben did, and I had no, you know, desire to weigh in on it, but could have, and we would have influenced their opinion, and we're not in that district.
It is a fair point. We also can do this such that the public does not see how those polls end up. You see what I mean? Like I can launch the poll, but it doesn't show the actual audience what the result is. And I can just report that to the council afterwards.
Right, I mean, they're giving you their community feedback for your, you know, for your feedback to the Department of Education, not for the whole district or whoever's there to say.
So this is a way to just kind of kick the tires on this. Like we can show people live results. We can gather that data and not show people live results. There's a million different ways that we can do this. And it's just a matter of how we want to do it on the night, whether or not we are worried about too many people who aren't actually D2 parents giving us feedback. If we want to do a Google poll, because I imagine if we did that, we sent out a Google form and asked people for feedback, we would probably get the people who were actually committed to giving a, you know, who had a horse in the race, I would guess. So, Lupe, I think I cut you off.
No. What I was going to say was, and if the worry was that like more, if we were getting poll numbers that were more than the people even in our town hall. I also just want to point out a lot of town halls are happening around the same time. Like, you know, they're doubled up, or several town halls are happening at once. Aside from like yourself going to D5 to check out the process, I myself don't see community members going specifically to I'm not sure how much of an influence they're going to have, and how that benefits them. I'm a bit confused on the concern in that area.
Ushma, what about if instead of asking for people's names, like this sample poll had, and I know that it's just a sample poll, what if you just ask for name your school, like PS
Affiliation.
Yeah, just that. So at least when you get back, people would be less inclined to just write a random poll rather than
Jose in with a winning idea. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I believe our CEC, when they log in for public comment, don't we ask what their affiliation is to D2? I haven't signed up in over a year now, so it's been a while, but I feel like that was part of the survey process, and maybe that can be one of, rather than a name, like he said, what is your affiliation to D2, to name the schools. To have
When you log
be able
into
to-
Learning Times, you have to give your affiliation.
Yeah. And we're going through Learning Times. Yeah.
Right.
That's the other thing, Ben, that we would need to check out. If we do want to use this, I have to be able to share my screen.
That can be done because today they Sean Davenport, when he gave his opening speech, he did share his screen. So we just have to ask Learning Times to do that.
I don't know if he shared his screen, Ben. I think he gave the
you're right.
Presentation to Learning Times to use.
Right. You're absolutely right. I will ask Michelle. I've asked her a whole bunch of questions in the past 24 hours, so I will get back to her.
All right.
I'll ask her
that's a sticking point. Like, I don't mind sharing my password for this, having them use it and then changing it afterwards. It's just there's a thing that you have to install on your computer in order for Poll Everywhere to work. It's not hard, but it is an extra step that somebody would have to take. So.
All right.
And why did you, I guess that share the screen to give the information?
Well, so in that regard, it might actually work if I launched the poll on my computer, but they just showed this is what you do and here's the question. Then we wouldn't show live results. So I could send them a PowerPoint deck of what it would look like, and I would just run it on my computer. And then that way the public would not see the actual answers. So there is a workaround if we don't want the public to see live answers.
And you wouldn't have to share your username and password with that as well.
You can access the chat, by the way, during the as a panelist. So. And everyone sees that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, a consideration, let's keep talking. Thank you everyone for sticking with us and giving us this feedback. It was super helpful just for people to be able to see how that works. And then if we were going to use it, we'd obviously have to figure out what the questions were that we would want to employ.
I just have to say something. I was listening all along, and I apologize. I forgot the gentleman's name who spoke. Well, Jose, you also spoke so passionately, but there was another gentleman.
Carlos.
Carlos. Was that who it was?
Yeah.
Wow, that was powerful. So it was wonderful to hear.
Wind in our sails for this committee. I love it. So
yeah, and thank you, Jose, too.
All right. Okay, everybody. Have a good Thursday. Thank you. And if you are interested in keeping up, I'm going to put you on our mailing list. So thank you very much.
And please join us on Monday.
Yes, and join us on Monday. All right.
Ushma, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.